So welcome everybody to our first in the series of discussions about leadership with great leaders that I get to work with every day. I'd like to take a minute just to start off by introducing everybody on our panel today, which we're privileged to have with us. First is Natalie Miller, is the CEO and co-owner of Miller's Auto Recycling in Fort Erie, Ontario. Right, Nat, CEO? That's the
Yes.
title now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Natalie's also a third generation business owner, which is incredibly impressive. Natalie is leading her company through some significant shifts in the automotive parts industry, especially the used parts industry, while also achieving tremendous growth throughout Ontario and the US. Lots of expansion. And then we have Aaron Jones with the beautiful hat with the what is that symbol on there, Aaron?
That is the Kraun Electric Spark Values Edition hat. So,
Perfect. Spark Values Edition hat. We
yeah,
should all get a copy of that when we're
Yes.
finished today's session.
we can make that happen. We can make that happen.
Aaron is the CEO and co-owner of Kraun Electric, serving Niagara, Hamilton, and Kitchener-Waterloo. Is that fair, Aaron?
Yep,
All
absolutely.
parts in between as well.
All parts in between. Yeah.
Aaron is leading his team, achieving strong growth and expansion while also developing incredibly effective systems internally and key positions within his leadership team. And lastly, up in the top left corner is our buddy Greg Brunet. Greg is president and co-owner of Niagara Outdoor Landscaping, which I confirmed today is located in Beamsville, not Vineland Station. Greg and his team design and build award-winning outdoor living spaces throughout Niagara and beyond. You guys are branching out. Greg and his team are leading the charge to bring more accountability and structure to his team, and also a lot of more coaching and consistent systems. Would you agree with that, Greg?
That's accurate. Yeah. Thanks for having me there.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, thank you all three for making time for me. I know how busy you guys are. So let's just start off with a general question about leadership in general. Um, what challenges are you finding about either developing leaders or finding leaders for your team? Natalie, let's start with you.
Um, the challenges for finding the leaders to begin with is
Yeah.
really just finding the key people that are going to fit into our team and be able to help us achieve the goals that we've set forth. So a lot of that is finding that right combination of someone who can fit into the culture of our organization, understand the dynamics of our business and have a very open mind to what our industry does. Along with that, I mean, the key things that we've really been looking for in the last little bit is someone who's really great at collaborating with the team. Over time, you start to recognize the weaknesses and the strengths of your current leadership team. And as we're looking for leaders to add, to me, collaboration is incredibly important, along with someone who's very decisive. And I think that that's something that, the ability to make decisions doesn't come easily and it doesn't come from everyone. And that is really a skill set and something that we're seeking in the leadership we're bringing on in the last little bit.
That's incredibly interesting, the word decisive. That doesn't come up a lot, but I could really see how you want leaders that are strong enough to stand on what they believe in and stand behind what the decisions and choices they make. That's excellent.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. Aaron, what are your thoughts around the same subject about, new leaders and what are you looking for?
Yeah. So I would say we most of our leaders or many of our leaders have come from inside the organization, and we try and do that where we can. But obviously, we've been growing fairly quickly over the last number of years, and so we have a number of leaders from outside the organization that we've brought in. We need people who are okay with a growth mindset and who are growth minded because we are continuing to grow, and that's led with a lot of change. So I found some leaders are very strong in maintaining, managing kind of I don't want to say the status quo, but in a less changing organization. But we've been changing a ton, so we got to make sure that the leaders are adaptable and open to that. And then the other side of that, and I guess along with that change is on technology. So this one's a tricky one. We've tried to always be a fairly technology forward company. We have brought on a number of different pieces of software over the last couple of years. and we continue to do that. And then the software gets more complex, and now you've got AI involved. And so that's something we're literally looking for our leaders to figure out how to lead on, because you've got to do it in a number of different parts of the company altogether. So to me, that's a huge piece of it. And then the other side of it is just goes a little bit to what Natalie said, but the cultural fit, right? You can't bring in a leader suddenly into your organization who doesn't fit the culture, because it's hugely disruptive. So you've got to find all these skills, but you've got to have the right fit and mindset as well, to fit into the culture. So
Yeah, and around culture, if your culture's not really well defined to begin with, then it makes it even more difficult, I'd imagine, to find that leader that can fit, right?
yes, that is true. We have spent a lot of time defining our culture. And in fact, in interviews in the last year, I've actually have a culture document that I will read to if I'm in the interview, certain types of people that we're hiring. Because you've either got to fit this or you don't. So you might as well be upfront with it. But that is something we do have a good understanding of it and definition for, is our culture. So
Excellent. So Greg, your situation's a little different than Natalie and Aaron's, where they came into their organizations when it already had some structure and some going on. Like I said, Natalie's a third generation business owner, and Aaron was part of a company that had already been running for a number of years. You and your partner started your business, and then you've grown it to the size you are today. What challenges have you seen with determining who on your team could be a leader or not a leader? What have you run into so far, and how you've developed that?
Yeah, we're going through it right now. Actually, Larry, we're hiring for a project manager within our company. Yeah, you want to be growing from within. You really reassess. Yeah, you see the spark hat Aaron's wearing? Do they align with our core values? Like, that's how we know we're hiring and firing people, right? The culture is just the way it is. So yeah, are they living it and breathing it every day? Are they treating each other with respect? How are they leading people? I think one of our biggest kind of realizations in recent has been, like you're looking at everyone individually, going through a skills matrix stuff that we're doing kind of with you. Just kind of one of the biggest things in these leaders are, how are they respected by others in our organization, right? Like, how does everyone else view them? The way I view them may be different than someone else in the field, right? Or someone in the office, right? So how are they communicating with each other? How are they respected by other members of the team? How obviously customers feedback surveys and stuff, like how are our customers, feel about them, right?
So you use the word respected, Greg. Do you find that with a smaller company like that, people may treat you differently than they may treat someone else? And if you're not in the room, is that something you're watching for or concerned about?
Yeah, I think we've definitely had that in the 18 years we've been in business, is had that. And yeah, you got to be able to see it through a different lens, right? Understand that, when I'm not there, maybe that person is acting differently, right? Like getting that feedback, having those regular touch points with your staff and everyone on your team to really understand, how is it really going, right? That's what that culture is. How is everything? What is the way it is when you're not there, right? So
Absolutely. So let's continue around, new leaders. So what specifically, Greg, we'll start with you this time. We'll go back around. What are you doing to nurture or grow your new leaders?
growing new leaders within our business, like as far as growing them, I guess, nurturing them has been like starting with like spring training that we're doing or planning that right now. Last year we spent 3 days with our entire team in the office, going through, SOPs and processes and, practical hands-on stuff. Spending the last year with you, Larry, has promoted so many like healthy conversations within our organization, having regular meetings, right? Like structured time meetings, taking the minutes, assigning, someone to own that, right? You talk about something, well, who's actually going to make sure to push that across the finish line, right? So who's doing that stuff? Just kind of spending the time with them, right? employee development plans. We've, quarterly meetings with everyone one-on-one, not just our leaders, but yeah, our future leaders as well, right? Like really touching base with them and setting goals and really kind of working together, right?
So it sounds like purposeful growth, purposeful mentorship versus sort of organic, right? So I think in my work with you guys, I've found that you guys are really, it's sort of new to you, that this purposeful stuff, like we're meeting with people regularly, but you're finding that the staff's really responding to it. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Just yeah, for them to know the expectations and to have goals that are written down and shared with each other, right? Like that makes them more attainable, right? You're looking at a lot of those leading indicators and all that kind of stuff to make sure we're getting there, right? We're checking in our progress along the way and we're getting there, right?
Excellent. Thank you. So Aaron, what about with leaders? So not to tell tales out of school, but you have two sort of levels of leaders in your company. You have your senior group, and then you have what, like, we call them site supers or
Yeah.
foreman level
Yeah.
leaders. How do you mentor both at the same time when they both have different requirements or different areas of responsibility?
Okay, that's a great question. So I would say, so first of all, it's been very intentional of how we've built that. So I've always worked with like a future org chart. So I'll draw up our org chart, but I will always put the future spots in it where I think we're going to need this position, or I think we're going to need this level at some point. So then when we get there, we know, okay, you're in this position for a reason, and this is what it needs. So it starts with kind of selecting that right person first. That's led to those kind of, I don't want to say stratified, but those different layers that we have. So we went through an exercise about 2 or 3 years ago where we actually broke our leadership team at the time into two separate levels, and one was the executive and one was kind of that first layer down. The reason for that is we recognize that we're going to continue to grow this business. We're looking at different things, right? So I was no longer looking at the projects from a day-to-day kind of project management point of view. I still try and keep in tune with that stuff, but that executive group is more focused around, well, how do we grow and build the company out? And then the next layer is, how do we run the company, day to day? So we have probably three main layers because we've got that middle layer, and then under them, then we have our site supervisors and field managers, both on our service side and our construction side. Just trying to define what each of their responsibilities are. We've actually got that in an org chart as well. This layer's main responsibilities are this. This layer, these positions, their main responsibilities are this. And this layer, your main responsibilities are this, so that you're trying to keep in alignment. And then the third thing is we've been doing a ton of work around just making sure that there's communication and coherence between those layers. So that's a hard thing to do. It's been a real challenge, and we're not perfect at it, but it's been a focus. So everybody kind of knows what their role is and where their level of responsibility is, and yeah, and making sure. The other thing I'll say on that is making sure that they're in the right spot for their skills, interests, abilities, and all that.
So Natalie, you're facing some of the same situation where you have a senior level, manager level, and in your organization we call them team leads.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the things you're doing to work with all those levels, but also how some of the stuff you're doing to bring them together, which has been really great the last couple of years.
Yeah, so similar challenge, we have a management level that has been growing over the time while the organization has grown. Probably about, oh goodness, 3-4 years ago, we put in a pretty solid set of team leads. It took a little bit to, again, find the right people, and I think it's something that was ever evolving. There's transition in the role, and there will be transition in those roles as time goes through. But we also, in working with you, Larry, we definitely work to clarify, and similar to what Aaron said, clarify what the roles are, clarify what it means to be a team lead, clarify what that looks like in our organization, as well as what the roles of the manager are, so that there's not that blurred area of where does, it's not exactly black and white, but as much as you can create that, and not have this gray blurred area where people feel like, am I overstepping this? Am I not doing what I should? So we've definitely got a good structure and setup there. The mentoring of them, is definitely a work in progress. All of our managers and team leads over the last how many years have done work with you, Larry, and that has been a huge help to give them some guidance and an outlet in different ways to mentor them. We also work with our managers on how to mentor the team leads. So that has been successful along the way at certain elements. We still have challenges, we still have struggles. Communication always seems to be the big struggle. And to what Aaron said, trying to figure out how do we communicate with the whole group. It's a big enough group. We can't bring everyone together every week, like our regular weekly meetings. So what we've done is we've started pretty solid quarterly meetings with the managers and the team leads together. And I think we've done about almost a year's worth now, pretty solidly with success. So definitely that helps the communication. It gives them the ability to communicate with all the managers, not just their own direct manager, gives them a seat at the table to say, here's the issue we're having. Maybe they've brought it up and it kind of got lost along the way. So that's been really helpful. It took, a couple meetings. I think the first meeting or two, the team leads were pretty quiet and no one really wanted to say too much. But it has certainly changed going forward. So that's a way that we're helping with communication and for the two levels to kind of work together and achieve what we need.
Yeah, you're right. It can be intimidating to be sitting there with the owners of the company and their bosses, the managers, and then hearing. I think you described it once. They were getting more of a strategic conversation, that maybe they were more operational, and you were giving them a chance to hear things more strategically. So, to Natalie's credit, she turned it into let's break bread together as well. So the social aspect sort of loosened everyone's inhibitions a bit. Not too much. We didn't want to go crazy, but it was a good, very well done. So Natalie, let's shift over to culture, because you know the three of you know I'm a broken record with that term, but culture is the essence of a company, right? It's the heartbeat. Talk to us about what you guys are doing to make sure culture is at the forefront of all your leaders' expectations and priorities.
I think this is always a challenge because in all the transitions, I mean, like we said, we're third generation. In our business, we have a wide array of employees who have been here all different years, lengths of service. They've crossed against different areas of where the business has been. And that's probably the hardest part about our culture. So how do we, adapt and change and really define who we are, who we've always been, and then kind of revolutionize that to who we actually are today. And I think that that's something that has been a big challenge for us. We've implemented a lot of things that do a lot more employee engagement. We certainly have done some work with vision and with our culture and what the expectations are. I can't say it's as concrete as, what Aaron's saying they have, and it kind of makes me say we got more work to do there. But definitely the good part is just really, we've kind of always, being a family business, toted that, we are a family. And we definitely try to bring that through in the culture and the organization. We're a family that matters to us. Our employees matter to us that way. And that in itself creates the culture. Along with the biggest thing that we've really pushed forward and has been challenging at times is really the growth mindset. The setup that, growth in our organization is part of what we are and part of what we will remain. And that is something that not every employee can really understand and adapt with. And so trying to explain that, involve people, understand that this is healthy, this isn't something we should be fearful of, this is something that we should all be excited to grow with the organization. So all of those things have, been part of what we create with our culture. Certainly events, company events, lunches, things that make people feel like, they have value and they're really part of the success that we're having.
Yeah. And when you mentioned growth mindset, Natalie, that's so critically important, because there's two sides to it. There's the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And the fixed
Mhm.
is I know everything. this is all there is, and growth is. And I know in your organization, you guys have been like a hockey stick with your growth lately, but it's not just growth in sales, but it's growth as a person, right? And what I'm bringing to the table. That's fantastic.
And I think, Larry, to that, the challenge is you can't expect every employee and every person to have a growth mindset. And so, as much as we want to foster that and we want to work on growing that, we have to also be realistic and work more with the people who are more fixed in their ways and help them to understand what a growth mindset really looks like and what that means to the organization.
And keep our frustrations in check when we do that.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. No, that's such a great point, Natalie. Thank you for that. So Aaron, let's keep along the lines of culture. And if you can give us sort of a brief background, how did you guys come up with the Spark values? Because I know values are a huge part of culture. So how did you guys come up with that?
So, okay, yeah, good question. So, the very short history of the company was that it's a 29-year-old company, and I've worked here for a very long time, but in 2018, Kelly and I, my business partner, we kind of bought out the first generation. And so that was just after that was around the time we said, well, okay, we got this thing and we've got a new vision for it. And the company was great, but we're going to take it in a slightly different direction. And we needed to define what that was. So we had a set of values that we came up with. Kelly and I remember sitting literally at her kitchen table one time and coming up with these values. And we've got this big long sheet of values. This is great. But it didn't take long till we were like, man, nobody remembers these things. We're talking about them. We don't even remember. We have to get out the book to read these things every time. So we thought, this doesn't make any sense. Like, people have got to remember this. So then what we did is we took our entire leadership team, we brought them together, and we said, all right, everybody just write down a name of somebody or some people that stand out to you in the company. And they wrote all these names down, and then we said, okay, now what's the word, phrase, or attribute about that person that got them on this list? And by the way, it was an extensive list of employees at the time. So then we got this bigger list of attributes, words, traits, all this stuff. And we said, now how do we take those things and distill that? Like, these are obviously values in the company. So if someone wrote down someone's name and then said, well, they're really knowledgeable about this, or they really work hard in this area, or they really, our customers love them and speak highly of them. How do we take that and say, okay, these are our values, let's distill them down? And so we said, well, we need an acronym. And around the exact same time, we were actually rebranding the whole company's look and all of that. We didn't change the name, but we did new logos and kind of a fresh feel. And in our logo, if you look carefully between the U and the N, there's this little negative space feature, and it's a spark. And it's actually this. This is the reverse version of it. So we said, well, it's right in the logo. Let's take those attributes and make the acronym SPARK. And then people start remembering them. So service, potential, authenticity, relationships, and knowledge were the
I'm
five.
glad you remembered those all, Aaron. I'm glad you remembered.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even have to look at my notebook. Right? But those were the 5 themes that came out. And so we said we can directly link these to attributes that are in the company that we've called out of the company that exist. So if that's the case, it should be easy to replicate and continue to do, because it already exists here. It's not just some words that we picked that we want to try and become, but we're not. So that was really, really important to us. And then after that, we just have started to drill it and put it into everything. So it shows up. We've done 3 years in a row where we actually do awards. The whole company gets to vote on nominate people for an award in each category, and they're given a trophy and they're given a cash prize if you win that award. We had something like, I think, 85 or 90% or maybe more of our employees nominate somebody in the company this year, which is even more impressive considering how many people we've hired in the last 3 years that are actually new employees that don't necessarily know a ton of people. Mm-hmm. So that's been, that's the Spark values. That's been the big thing. And then we just keep bringing it up all the time and say to them, if I sound like a broken record, then I guess I'm doing my job, because if everybody can be talking about this stuff and wearing it on their heads, and we've got some other software we actually celebrate people's wins. Like everybody can celebrate each other's wins, and then they can call out these values as well and link them to that win. So it's just everywhere. We just try and put it everywhere. And now you'll hear a lot of employees talking about it and actually making decisions on it and saying, well, when I think about that value, this is how it relates to what the decision I made or the action I took. And and then we tell new employees right off the bat, you've been hired on this. We have it right into our evaluations now. So you're being evaluated on these values as part of your evaluation. And if you contravene them severely, then that's problematic, right? And so that becomes maybe a disciplinary thing. Luckily, that happens very rarely, but yeah, it's just a really important thing, and we just keep hammering on it and just keep bringing it up. So
I know all three of you at your quarterly meetings, that's the first thing you review is your corporate values and how are we living them as a group. So Greg, along the line, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, I'm ready to jump in there. So if you have a spark, then that can lead to a fire. And our core values are family, integrity, respect, and excellence, right? So it's, you're hammering it,
we got to get you an acronym.
Yeah.
And same thing, we're celebrating our successes. We're bringing it back to those core values. Our, end of the year company awards, we're handing out a fire award that, the person that encompasses all those values. I think for the treating the company, the employees there with the respect has been the biggest thing of kind of what's brought it back for us too, right? And like listening to them and being engaged and asking them how I can help has been a big change to really develop that. I think doing fun company outings are a big thing there too that we talk about. We've done fishing charters, Blue Jay games, annual summer barbecue. This year we got a golf outing planned, right? So doing a lot of those things that kind of share in the successes and celebrate our wins there. And our Monday morning, I'm starting it with kind of what I've got and having the other guys or girls on the team celebrate, what their wins are as well, right? So that's been a big thing to promote some good conversations, and that's been good. And just understanding that most people care. Like, for me, the biggest thing has been, I've been the guy opening the gate every morning, since we started, right? And then, it was just until kind of last year where it's like, hey, I got to step back. I got to focus on different things of the business. But you're always worried about, are they going to be? No, let's put in a process in there. Okay, this is the start of the day, process. So they know what needs to happen. And when we saw, once I kind of stepped away, how they really stepped up in that, right? And that stuff can get done. They're stepping up. They genuinely care about the team success, right? The more the team's successful, well, the more they're going to be successful, right? So it's been good.
So this is for all three of you. If someone wants to jump in, one of the things is, all three of you are owners of your business, and no one cares as much about the business as the owner because your names are on it and your blood's in it and your sweat and your tears are in it. How do you, or what have you done to help your leaders feel some of that same passion and excitement you have for your business, and to bring that to the people they're managing or leading? I'll leave this to anybody who wants to jump in. Please, Aaron.
Okay, let me jump in. So I think the growth. So I think Natalie mentioned the growth mindset. It's a big part of our culture. We call it out in our culture document. When you combine that with giving people the training they need to actually grow as leaders, and then just asking them to be accountable for their area and ownership, and giving them a little bit of leeway around. We always talk about so our authenticity value. We talk about owning your mistakes, right? We all make them every single day. I make some of the worst ones in the company, I'm sure. But own it, right? But then actually give people the leeway to do that. And that's the challenging thing. So Greg, when you say, like, I realize I have to step back and let other people do these things, it's awesome because when you do that, you find out what I've discovered is actually most of the time they're better at that stuff anyways.
Yeah.
And so I love that personally because I'm like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I didn't really love that, or I wasn't really great at that anyways, or maybe I was okay, but actually this person is dedicated to that role or dedicated to that piece, and they're going to do a better job. So, in the last number of years, we've turned over finance to a professional. We've turned over our operations. We hired an operations manager who's just fantastic, way better than I was at doing the operations day to day. So you give them that autonomy. And then I think the other thing is you just give them the mandate. Here's the goals and here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's the guidelines or the guardrails. Go do it, right? And then celebrate the wins.
Yeah,
So
excellent. Greg or Nat, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I agree. They're like understanding what we don't know, right? Like for us, it's now maybe getting our salespeople some more sales training. We're going after these high-end clientele. Well, it requires a different skill set, a different way of selling, right? For me as a leader in the office and being close to the financials, it's maybe we're looking at hiring like a fractional CFO that can help us with that. I was just at a seminar last week and there's 250 landscape companies and there's like, who's hiring? And everyone puts up their hand. Well, how many people have a degree in human resources? And there's like one in the room, right? So it's like, yeah, knowing that what you don't know and finding the right people to help kind of fill those voids. It's like getting a better relationship with our accountant. And then being training them on it, right? Like investing in that stuff. So I think that's been big for us.
Excellent. Nat, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, and you said it, being the owner, right? We feel like it's that feeling like no one else can quite do it like we do. No one else can care that much. But that's part of building and developing the right team and bringing the right people into the organization. And for us, similar to what Greg and Aaron just said, as we've been able to do that, and you start to, be able to hand over responsibilities and hand over not even just responsibilities. I mean, we have some managers that are really driving some of the change in our organization. And that's been terrific. So as that's happened, you can kind of start to have more confidence in that. And then we're looking for our other team members to step up to the plate as well. And it's been terrific because the same thing, there's a lot of the things that I was doing that I'm not good at. And we have people in places who do much better jobs at some of them than I do. As far as standard operating procedures in HR, it was never something I loved. I can sit there and say, I know what needs to happen and how things are supposed to go through. But if you want me to write down that detailed document, I'm bored in about 30 seconds. So, the challenge of that is one of those things that when we finally start to have the right people in place, I've never sold. I'm not a true salesperson. I understand sales. I understand what we need to get there. But, to say that I'm going to be the one driving our sales team, every day, day in and day out is not probably the best person. So, as we've started to bring those people in, it's made a huge difference. I'm still doing a lot of the finance now. So those are things, as you both brought it up, that we are looking at, going forward. What does that look like and how does that change? Because again, am I going to learn that maybe I'm not the absolute best person doing that? There's strengths I have and there's a role I have in the organization. But allowing and moving forward with the right people, they can help us get further than we can get on our own.
Excellent.
For sure.
So we'll wrap it up with one last question here. And this is, Natalie, we'll start with you. Is what advice would you give a business owner that is looking to invest in leadership, that they're saying, you know what, this is a priority for me? I'll give you guys an example. I had a meeting with a client this week, 45-person business. And the owner, after our meeting, pulled me aside and says, I think I'm losing it. Like I have to do everything. Everything's on my plate. You saw through our meeting today that every decision, everybody just looked to me. And my response was, you don't have any leaders here. You just have followers. And he just, the look on his face was, the three of you, I'm sure years ago, maybe we're in that place. So Nat, what advice would you give to somebody that's in that struggling position right now?
I think it's hard. It's always a challenge because it goes back to what you were just saying is what are we willing to give up? What are we allowing? How much of it is us stopping, bringing someone else in? So I think there's factors. I think it's our own self, reflection on what are we looking for and what are we willing to give up to bring that right person in. I think it's, and we highlighted this earlier, what are the skills that we need in a leader that we're bringing in? What is it and that's specific, that can be a little bit different for every organization based on what your goals are, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. And I think the other hard part is generally when you're looking at bringing someone in a leadership team, there's a huge expense with that. And sometimes that's about taking the risk. And that is a hard thing to do. That is number one, a hard thing sometimes to sell to your team or other owners. And that's a hard thing to do. And, sometimes taking that risk and saying, we need to do this. We need to bring this person on.
Yep.
What's the worst that can happen? It's not successful. And this is what happens then. Or this could be tremendously successful. And that's not an easy thing for people to do. And it's not easy to be able to kind of let that part of your, I think you have to go with your gut always. Don't go out and just hire the first person you find who could be on your leadership team. You have to fit all the aspects of what you're really looking for. But some of it's just about taking the risk, really, the risk to try it. And understand that, similar to what Aaron said, we all fail at times. We may not pick the right person the first time. It may take us 2 or 3 times. And that's a little bit of stress on us, but generally when you get that right person in there, it's going to be invaluable to the organization.
Excellent. Greg, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I totally agree with Natalie there. Yeah, take the risk, put it in your budget, add it to your calendar, do what you got to do to just make sure that it happens. Because, I've seen, most recently in the last year, how important it's been, how the response you've gotten from your team, right? Aaron talked about, the right people on the right seats. Well, yeah, we're in this business, whether it's automotive recycling or electric or like landscaping, like we're all on a bus ride together with our teams. Is everyone in the right seat? Is the person beside you helping you and making your job easier? I think investing in ourselves as leaders there, like, having a clear physical and mental state as a leader is just going to make you perform better and lead your team better. And those other leaders in your company are going to see that. I think the more we grow, like our teams are going to grow. Getting involved in the industry has been a big one for me. Talking with other leaders in the landscape industry, people that are doing the same thing as you. We all have the same challenges. It's just talking about it, trying to avoid doing something that someone else did a couple of years ago. Right.
Well, don't reinvent the wheel, right? If you can learn from someone.
For sure. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of doing it, and the coaching and teaching component has been big for us too, right? Like at all levels of our team, from our top leaders to the guys that are carrying the wheelbarrows and pushing the shovels and rakes. Like, yeah, they need to be taught, they need to be coached, they need to understand, give them the feedback so they can do better and continue to grow up to be our future leaders, right?
100%. Aaron, you want to wrap up that question for us?
Okay, sure. So first of all, I'd start with clarity of vision. So what are you trying to be as an organization? If you are trying to grow your organization, then you're going to need to have other leaders. If you are happy with the size of the organization and you're just doing fine, I mean, you need to understand that and be honest about that. But if you're trying to grow, you're going to have to be very clear about what actually you want to achieve, plan for it, and then, yes, you have to make those investments. So you know where you're going. You're going to need leaders. It's going to take a while, and it's going to be expensive. It doesn't happen overnight. You will get it wrong. You get the wrong hire. Do everything you can. They say hire slow. Take as many steps as it takes to go through to make sure you get that person right, because it's challenging if it doesn't work out. That being said, we've had that. We've definitely hired people from outside the organization or even inside, put people into a leadership position that it wasn't the right fit. We didn't see this one side of it. You're going to make mistakes. I don't think you can be as careful as you want, but I just don't think there's a way around that. I would say look for people that actually are exemplifying leadership qualities or want it for the right reasons, right? So you need to, not everyone can or should be a leader, and it isn't always just the person who's the loudest or the or the best at this or whatever, they may not be a good leader, because being a leader is, there's elements of sacrifice. Often there's elements of your job changes completely, right? Not everyone's gonna do well in that job. And then I'd say the other part of that is, you have got to demonstrate it yourself. So getting out there, like, read the books, go get a mentor yourself. If you want other people to value growth, then you better be growth minded yourself. You better actually be investing in yourself.
Yeah.
You better actually be taking the courses or taking the time to do that, or going to the groups. Greg, you mentioned industry. Join an industry group. Join an industry agnostic group where different types of industries come together, because you'll find that there's certainly the same problems in every business. And you're going to have to be very generous with the knowledge you have, and foster that in the company, right? Because if people aren't sharing knowledge, it's going to be difficult for future leaders. But ultimately, it comes down to, if you know what you want to do, you know where you're going, you're going to have to make that investment and just do it. I waited probably longer than I should to formalize some of the leadership investments we've made, although we've always had some good leaders naturally. But it takes investment. People got to learn somehow, right? People have to be equipped to do the job well, and it's a constant learning thing. So do it and be ready to make the investment, and it'll pay off down the road. It's expensive now, and sometimes it looks bad on this year's P&L, but it'll pay off down the road. So you got to do it.
Well, I want to thank all three of you so much for making time for me today. This has been a great discussion. I can't wait to get this out to the world and let everybody have a look. So a special thank you to Greg Brunet, Aaron Jones, and Natalie Miller. Thank you guys so much, and all the best.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks,
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.